Hi everyone, it's Alex from Risk Academy. Today I wanted to share with you the 4 key takeaways from the risk management meeting I had in St. Petersburg, Russia last week. It was an amazing meeting and I'm very grateful for the local risk management community for helping to organize it and come and speak with us. So the 4 key takeaways, which I thought were pretty amazing, we talked about the future trends of risk management, the major developments, something that's changing, something that the risk managers of tomorrow need to be mindful of. And the 4 key takeaways were: number 1, risk management is certainly becoming seen or becoming recognized as one of the management tools required to make decisions, required to plan, budget, or perform any activity that is associated with high uncertainty. So risk management is really moving away from being a standalone process with its own reports, its own meetings, its own workshops, its own deliverables like risk registers and risk maps. Risk management, the first key takeaway is risk management is about integrating that tool set into every decision, every single decision, every daily decision that management does, every core process that is associated with high uncertainty. So that was number 1, and you know, to my mind, this is really big. Risk management is not a standalone process. It's not an activity that you perform on a quarterly basis. Basically, risk management is something that has to be done daily, a number of times on a daily basis, more often. So that was number 1. The second one, which was the role that humans play in the process. Even though there's a lot of talk about automation and the future of big data and using the data analytics to help drive the risk analysis, right now the decisions are still being made by humans. And humans are not as rational, not as predictable, not as well balanced, not as risk aware as we think. There has been done a lot of research, and 2 scientists, Smith and Kahneman, won a Nobel Prize for their studies in risk perception in economics many years ago. So there has been done a lot of research into how humans actually behave in the situations of uncertainty, and their real behavior is very different to what we expect. And I think it's now time, and this is what we talked about in St. Petersburg, it is now time for the risk management community to stop ignoring the reality, I guess. Humans behave differently, humans interact differently, humans use information in a different way. So risk surveys, risk workshops, risk registers, risk maps, risk frameworks, they do not work. They simply don't. And I have spent a lot of time trying to give an alternative to all those common tools in the different videos that you can see on the Risk Academy channel. But the role of the human being is so great in the risk management process, in the risk management processes I should say, because there are a lot of them, is that we really need to be taking that into account. So all those high-level feel-good slogans is that risk is everybody's responsibility and tone at the top drives risk culture, they're nonsense. They really, honestly, are absolute rubbish, because none of that has anything to do with how reality works, with how humans really work and think in day-to-day lives. They're driven, humans, executives, employees, are driven by a completely different set of motivators than feel-good slogans. So that was an interesting discussion. Number 2 is the role of the person, the way our brain works, the way cognitive biases impact on our decision making is critical to how we manage risk and what tools we use for managing risks. And the third point that we talked about in St. Petersburg is that given everything discussed so far, the changing nature of risk management integrated into business, the changing, or the sort of the reality about the way humans work and interact and the way their brain works, really has an impact on the risk management profession. And I think that the third key takeaway is that the three lines of defense model, where there's the business, there's the risk management, and then the assurance, is flawed. It's super idealistic. It does not work in real life. The first line of defense literally is not interested in managing risks. In fact, they will do anything possible to completely ignore risks in their day-to-day activities. And the second line of defense, the risk management, with their frameworks, methodology, facilitation, support, is completely irrelevant. Nobody cares about their input into day-to-day life of the business. So the three lines of defense is quite flawed, and the role of the modern-day risk manager looks like is going to change significantly. I think the future of the risk management profession is not in facilitation, is not in coordination, is not in training, is not in methodology support. It still has a small role to play in all of those things, but I'd say it's about 20% of what risk managers really should be doing. And the other 80% that the risk managers should be doing is actually taking an active stand on most significant business decisions, providing analytics, providing independent analysis, having a veto power at the end of the day on certain deals if they are too risky, having an independent input based on a lot of risk analysis, on some very strong evidence, external, internal evidence, to have an equal seat at the board table. So the third point that we discussed is that the role of the modern day risk manager, as a result of risk management not being a standalone process, the cultural and human factors that need to be taken into account, the role of the risk manager is going to change. The risk manager needs to become active, needs to take responsibility for the risks that he himself identifies, assesses, manages. He needs to have a skin in the game, as Nassim Taleb used to, or likes to put it. And I fully support that. The only time when I could play an equal role at the board table is when I performed an independent risk analysis, not based on the assessment performed by the first line of defense, not based on the information provided by the first line of defense. In fact, contradicting the information that was provided by the first line of defense, because they're not motivated to tell the risk managers the truth. They're motivated to do something else. So the third point was the role of the risk manager is going to change from an observer, methodological support, to an active player in the decision-making process. And the final point that we discussed in St. Petersburg, and I'm very grateful I had again this opportunity to talk to the local risk management community, was to support this new role, the risk managers need to really improve their competencies. And the four things that need to be improved is the knowledge of the risk management standards, the ISO 31000, because there's a lot of fundamental ideas that have been written there in 2009, and right now the standard is being updated. There are a lot of really new, great thinking that's coming your way in 2017. So know the risk management standard, understand how human brain works, understand cognitive biases, understand how people behave under uncertainty, understand how the bonus structure has more impact on the individual performance and their risk-taking behavior than any tone of the top of any other rubbish that risk consultants tell you. This is the single most important point. Depending on how much money each person gets in their bonus payment, they will behave in an according way. So, understanding the ISO standard, ISO 31000 standard, understanding the cognitive biases, understanding how quantitative risk analysis work, Monte Carlo simulation, scenario planning, sensitivity analysis. This is an absolute must for any risk manager who is wishing to be taken seriously at the board table. And the fourth competency that is an absolute must is understanding how your own business works. The business processes, the engineering side, how the money is basically made. What are the tricks of the game? And now it's pretty obvious from this discussion, a single person within a single risk manager is probably not quite capable, physically not capable, to have all of those expertise available. So it's a matter of having in your team an engineer, if you're in a manufacturing company, a psychologist, who, if you want to understand the cognitive biases, a mathematician who is good at quantitative risk analysis, and a politician who is good at building relationships and integrating into different processes and speaking with the different executives. So risk management is a team effort, but it's a team effort that has to take responsibility for its own action. It's not a support, it's not a methodology expert, it's not a facilitator. It's an active decision maker in the company who can provide input into the decision making, who can provide insight that other executives do not have for some reason, mainly because they choose not to have that expertise on risk. So that was the result of our discussion in St. Petersburg. I really enjoyed the event, and we stayed until very late to have dinner afterwards. I am once again grateful for the local risk management community for organizing and participating. If you want to see some of the short videos on some of the topics that I've discussed, do subscribe to the Risk Academy channel on YouTube. And for now, for me, thank you and goodbye.